Welcome to the Rare Coins Explorers, where mystery meets metal and history twists through copper like a ghost through time. And today, we plunge headfirst into the shadowy world of one of America's most whispered about numismatic enigmas, the 1970 D. Lincoln penny, a coin that should have been ordinary but instead became a beacon of speculation, myth, and obsession. Raising a chilling question that echoes through collector circles even now: what if a single overlooked mistake made it one of the rarest coins ever struck by the U.S. Mint? Born in the turbulent wake of the 1960s, amid national unrest, technological upheaval, and mounting pressure on the mint to mass-produce flawless currency, this humble Denver-struck penny somehow emerged carrying anomalies so peculiar, so irreconcilable with standard procedure, that it defies logic, regulation, and known documentation. Launching a decades-long hunt for meaning in its many inconsistencies and forcing experts to grapple with the eerie possibility of covert production runs, unauthorized die usage, or deeply buried human error that was never meant to see the light of day, yet somehow escaped into circulation, hiding in plain sight. And while most 1970 D pennies appear unremarkable, reports began surfacing in the 1980s of specimens bearing doubled dies that twisted Lincoln's profile into a shadowy echo of itself. Ghosted date numerals that looked like reflections in a fogged mirror, and mintmarks that hovered just a fraction off their expected placement, as though applied with a hand that trembled or a machine that malfunctioned just long enough to let strangeness seep in. Anomalies dismissed by skeptics at first but later authenticated by die specialists who identified misplaced die polishing lines, misaligned hubs, and internal die breaks hidden beneath the surface like the bruises of a botched secret. And it wasn't just the physical deformities that drew attention, but the unexplained silence from mint records, missing production logs, incomplete press maintenance files, and the unexplained reappearance of die varieties believed retired in the late 60s, all fueling wild theories that perhaps some of these pennies were struck using leftover 1960s-era master dies improperly retooled for 1970, or worse. That unauthorized trial strikes had been conducted and a few had slipped out during a night shift when oversight faltered and accountability blurred into plausible deniability. And as rumors grew, so did the devotion of the numismatic underground, private collectors launching full-scale investigations, coordinating over classified forums, tracking die markers under microscopes, hunting for the telltale signs of phantom impressions where initials should have been but weren't, like the elusive FG disappearing from the base of the memorial, or faint doubling along Lincoln's vest that suggested a failed hubbing attempt quickly suppressed. And then came the shocking revelations, testimonies from former Mint employees hinting at hurried late-night retooling efforts, die exchanges done without full supervisory sign-off, and one cryptic claim that a batch of coins was intentionally destroyed after a mistake was caught too late, leaving only a handful to escape into the world, which some believe were scooped up by insiders or ended up as pocket change that now hides in drawers, roll hunts, or old collections, waiting to be rediscovered by someone who knows what to look for, someone who understands that the key to unlocking this mystery lies not in what the records say, but in what they omit, and with every new specimen reported, some with weak strikes and tilted images, others with microscopic doubling around the lettering or even die clash marks that seem to overlay faint design elements from an entirely different coin, the mystery deepens. Because these aren't random errors but pieces of a puzzle that numismatists have been assembling for years, a puzzle whose completed image might reveal a truth so inconvenient that it was quietly buried in redacted reports, lost emails, or mint vaults no longer in use. Yet despite decades of searching, no one can answer with certainty why some 1970 D pennies look like they were struck with outdated dies, how so many tiny inconsistencies made it past rigid inspection protocols, or why multiple varieties exist without explanation from official die pairing records. And so the hunt continues. A modern treasure quest not for fortune but for revelation, for understanding, for the satisfaction of pulling back the curtain on a coin that shouldn't exist the way it does, yet does. And that tension, that gnawing uncertainty, is what keeps collectors wide-eyed at conventions, archivists buried in paperwork, and amateur sleuths scouring every penny jar in America. Because the 1970 D Lincoln cent may not just be a coin, it may be a coded artifact of hidden processes. forgotten missteps, or intentional acts buried by time and bureaucracy, a cipher carved in copper that still holds its secrets tight, teasing us with every faint shadow, every off-center strike, every phantom mintmark, daring us to solve a mystery that grows stranger the closer we get, and making us wonder how many more anomalies are still out there, quietly passing from hand to hand, as the world spins, unaware that in their palm they may be holding a clue to one of the greatest numismatic riddles in American history? Next, 2016 D. Lincoln Penny. Today we unravel the secrets of a coin so deceptively ordinary that millions have touched it, spent it, pocketed it, and moved on, unaware they may have been holding one of the most mystifying anomalies to ever escape the confines of the U.S. Mint, the 2016 D. Lincoln Penny. A coin that on the surface is indistinguishable from its countless brethren, yet at its core harbors secrets, defects, and inconsistencies that have baffled collectors, experts, and mint insiders alike. Sparking one burning question that refuses to fade: what if a small, overlooked minting error transformed this unassuming cent into one of the rarest, most enigmatic coins ever struck in modern American history? To understand how this mystery took root, we must travel back to a year of national transition and institutional strain, a time when production quotas were soaring and minting processes had been heavily automated, compressing human oversight into mere seconds per batch, and it was in this pressurized crucible that something slipped, something no one has yet been able to fully explain. Something that began as whispers on online numismatic forums, where seasoned collectors quietly exchanged blurry microscope photos showing coins with faint doubling on the date, or a mintmark that seemed to dance in and out of shadow, or coins with obverse surfaces so flat and featureless they appeared almost ghostly, as if Abraham Lincoln himself were fading into the metal. And while these accounts were initially dismissed as lighting artifacts or damaged coins, the frequency and specificity of the claims grew. And soon respected experts in die state progression began to take notice, especially when reports of coins with invisible or misaligned designer initials began trickling in, some completely missing the FG near the memorial base, others showing unusual die scratches that mimicked die clashes but didn't correspond with any known error patterns, raising alarming questions about whether these were simple oversights or evidence of deeper mechanical failures or even unauthorized die experimentation during the production run at the Denver Mint in 2016, a facility known for its blistering pace and reliance on automated equipment calibrated to minute tolerances. And yet somehow, these coins slipped through, coins with weak strikes, distorted lettering, bloated rims, coins that looked as though they'd been struck off-center then corrected by an invisible hand, coins with telltale signs of improper die alignment or planchet instability, and even more disturbingly, coins with what appeared to be overlapping design elements faintly peeking from beneath the surface, suggesting a reused or repurposed die, a practice explicitly prohibited unless cleared by mint officials, and yet the growing evidence pointed to the impossible, to a production chain interrupted by either error, miscommunication, or something far more deliberate. And as images mounted and anomalies multiplied, the numismatic community fractured into warring theories. Some claiming a rogue batch of die trials intended for internal testing was accidentally fed into production machines and never recalled, others speculating a temporary software glitch in the die-setting interface allowed for inconsistent hub-to-die transfers, and still others going further, proposing that a quiet re-engraving attempt had been made to refresh worn dies mid-run, violating standard protocol and introducing countless microscopic inconsistencies across thousands of coins, inconsistencies now being cataloged and studied in private coin labs, university metallurgical departments, and hidden basements of veteran collectors, whose decades of expertise could no longer deny what was unfolding, the emergence of a modern mystery, a coin supposedly perfected by 2016's technological standards now exposing the fragility of those very systems, and adding fuel to the fire were insider accounts, carefully anonymized, suggesting internal memos were circulated warning staff about irregularities during Q2 2016 production cycles, memos that referenced off-hub distortions and hub misalignment, phrases that sent chills down the spines of archivists who understood what they implied, not just one or two flawed coins, but entire press batches vulnerable to error, and as rumors swelled, stories began surfacing of collectors discovering 2016 pennies with deep dye scratches running behind Lincoln's neck, others with misaligned reverse strikes that left parts of the shield-shaped Union emblem floating too close to the rim, and the most haunting of all, a small set of coins allegedly found with doubling so subtle and shallow it could only be seen under forensic-grade magnification, a type of micro-doubling associated not with accidental double striking but with die fatigue under excessive pressure, the kind that results when a worn-out die is pushed beyond its service life during a production emergency, a situation which, if true, would imply a rare breach in mint policy, or worse, a deliberate concealment of mechanical limitations to meet delivery targets during a production surge, and as this theory gained traction, digital communities turned into research collectives, pulling together spreadsheets of serial patterns, geographic distribution maps, copper layer density scans, anything to trace these anomalies back to a specific week or shift, and the deeper they dug, the more alarming the inconsistencies became, because each of these small indicators, a missing mark here, a slightly warped character there, added up to a portrait not of isolated accidents, but of systemic breakdown, a quiet moment when America's minting precision faltered and a few coins slipped into the wild bearing the fingerprints of failure and mystery and the haunting possibility of forbidden experimentation, and now, nearly a decade later, those coins circulate among us like echoes of a truth buried in bureaucracy, coins that pass from wallet to counter to drawer, each with the potential to hold a piece of this unsolved puzzle. A modern relic masquerading as spare change, and as we trace every anomaly, from faint die clashes to misplaced elements to vanished initials and ghost impressions, we begin to see not just a coin, but a chronicle of hidden human error, of machine fatigue, of procedural shortcuts, and the haunting realization that even in an age of automated perfection, the strange, the flawed, and the inexplicable still find a way to endure, and so the hunt intensifies, with every collector scouring their penny rolls, their bank boxes, their childhood jars of change, not for profit but for vindication, for the thrill of uncovering a piece of the puzzle that others missed, for the chance to become a part of the living history of one of the most perplexing mint mysteries in circulation today, the 2016 Lincoln penny, a coin that may yet have more secrets to give, more variations to reveal, and more questions to ask, because while the mint remains silent and the official story incomplete, the coins themselves keep speaking, through their strange scars, their mismatched devices, their misplaced marks, inviting us to listen, to investigate, and to chase the thrill of numismatic revelation one anomaly at a time. Next, 1988 1-cent coin. Today we invite you into the heart of a numismatic enigma that has left even the most seasoned experts stunned and grasping for answers, a story born not from gold or silver, but from copper-coated zinc, centered on a coin so common in appearance, so ubiquitous in American pockets, yet so wrapped in controversy, speculation, and staggering improbability that it forces us to ask the question no collector can resist. What if a small mistake in 1988 made the Lincoln penny one of the rarest and most mysterious coins ever struck by the U.S. Mint? To understand the depth of this puzzle, we must first return to a pivotal year in minting history, 1988. A time of technological transition and economic urgency, when the mint had fully embraced copper-plated zinc planchets just 6 years earlier and was now optimizing every press, every die, every second of production to meet escalating demand. And it was during this rush toward mechanical precision that something profound and inexplicable, went terribly wrong, leading to the birth of anomalies that still defy logic, documentation, and official records to this day. For in the chaos of mass production came whispers of a peculiar variant, a Lincoln penny struck in 1988 bearing none of the expected flaws of age or wear, but rather deeper, more unsettling deviations, subtle yet undeniable ghost impressions near Lincoln's jacket collar, misaligned mintmarks hovering in unnatural positions, and most famously, a set of coins where the designer's initials, FG, meant to rest neatly beneath the memorial on the reverse, either vanished entirely or appeared strangely altered, as if erased by a shadowy hand or lost in a moment of malfunction, an error so specific and so peculiar that it lit a firestorm in the collector world, prompting endless magnification, photomicrography, and forensic-level die tracking across specimen after specimen, where one chilling question kept surfacing. Could this be the result of an unauthorized die, perhaps a leftover from a previous year, maybe even 1989, being mistakenly or surreptitiously paired with a 1988 obverse, creating a hybrid that was never meant to exist, a coin born out of bureaucratic blindness or clandestine mint floor confusion? And from there, the mystery only deepened, as researchers discovered conflicting characteristics in various 1988 cents, some showing strong reverse devices inconsistent with the 1988 design, others displaying doubling so fine it resembled spectral overlays, barely visible without specialized lighting but unmistakably real, shadowed strokes in Lincoln's eye, ghosted earlobes, clash marks that suggested unrecorded die pairings, and planchet blisters betraying thermal inconsistencies that should not have occurred under the controlled systems of modern minting, and yet, inexplicably, they did, igniting fevered analysis among numismatists who began cataloging dozens of micro-variations, tracing them to batch groups and die stages that curiously vanished from public production logs, leading some to suggest a cover-up, intentional or not, of a minting experiment gone awry or worse. A quietly sanctioned die test using retired or unapproved designs that left behind no official paper trail but continued to echo through the metal, and the anomalies weren't just visual. Some collectors reported weight irregularities, edge inconsistencies, and rim-to-rim distortions that hinted at improperly seated planchets, leading to theories about worn collar dies or press misalignment during a turbulent week of output in mid-1988, and as more collectors began sharing their findings, some of them eerily similar despite originating from geographically distant banks, an underground network of obsessive penny hunters formed, coordinating their roll hunts, aligning their findings, and sharing privately circulated scans of coins that appeared to defy not just minting standards but basic chronology itself, with reverse dies appearing to predate their assigned year, sparking explosive speculation about whether certain facilities had reused test dies in violation of mint protocol, or if an unrecorded emergency struck during press maintenance, necessitating die substitutions that were never meant to be caught or remembered, yet they were. And now, decades later, those traces have become the holy grail of error coinage, with each new discovery deepening the riddle. How did these coins get past inspection? Why does the mint remain silent? And most disturbingly, how many more of these hybrid errors remain in circulation, disguised among billions of routine cents, waiting for someone to notice a hairline shift in the D mintmark, a missing curve in the G of FG, or a doubling in the base of Lincoln's throat that whispers of a mechanical ghost haunting the press long after its calibration had supposedly been perfected, and all the while, collectors report stranger and stranger details, coins with offset clashes showing outlines of Lincoln's profile on the reverse, or shield-like patterns bleeding subtly through the memorial columns, as if layers of time had bled together into a single confused strike. And metallurgical testing has only fueled the fire, with some 1988 cents showing copper plating inconsistencies that suggest variable heating times, planchet contamination, or even improper alloy bonding, a sign, perhaps, that these weren't just die errors but systemic failures manifesting under the pressure of high-volume production. And now, as the data accumulates, the numismatic world faces a haunting possibility that the 1988 Lincoln penny is not one anomaly, but many. A constellation of subtle errors and deviations resulting from a confluence of overlooked variables, human, mechanical, and historical, that converged in a perfect storm of imperfection, leaving behind a riddle so complex it may never be fully solved, but only pursued, piece by piece, coin by coin, by those brave enough to search, study, and believe that sometimes a simple penny can conceal the echoes of lost decisions, forgotten procedures, and untold secrets. And so the hunt continues, not for wealth, not for recognition, but for truth, for clarity, for the electrifying chance that somewhere, in a pocket, a penny jar, or a forgotten roll from a rural bank vault, lies another piece of this enduring enigma, another 1988 cent whispering its metallic secrets into the hands of someone willing to listen, someone who knows that in the world of coins, the line between ordinary and legendary can be as thin as a hairline die crack, and that even today, history still hides in plain sight, pressed into copper, waiting to be discovered. Next, 2003 D1-cent coin. Today we dive headfirst into the most chilling and enigmatic tale surrounding one of the most misunderstood coins in modern American history, the 2003 D Lincoln penny, a coin struck with such mechanical precision that it was supposed to be flawless, unremarkable, another quiet entry in a lineage stretching back over a century, and yet, for reasons that defied documentation, common sense, and even the known minting protocols of the early 2000s, this one particular year-end mintmark combination has become the epicenter of obsessive inquiry, collector speculation, and numismatic lore so strange that it forces us to ask the question that hangs over every word to come: what if a small mistake made the 2003 D one of the rarest and most unknowable coins ever struck? As we rewind to that year, we find the U.S. Mint in Denver operating with ruthless efficiency, armed with state-of-the-art equipment, digitally guided press calibrations, and error detection systems that could identify a misaligned die within minutes. Yet even in this environment of modern perfection, something escaped, something that left behind a trail of inconsistencies. Ghosts in the copper-coated zinc that have become the obsession of those who look closer than the average eye, and it all began quietly, with a handful of collectors reporting subtle oddities in coins pulled fresh from bank rolls, oddities that at first seemed inconsequential, a slight shadow behind Lincoln's profile, a mintmark that didn't quite align with the date, a whisper of doubling in the word, liberty, or the 2003, that was too faint to be mechanical damage, but too distinct to be imagined, and while isolated, such variations might be dismissed, their sudden and clustered appearance in multiple states, from Colorado to Texas to Illinois, sent shivers through the numismatic world, triggering a hunt for clarity that only deepened the confusion, because each strange coin raised more questions than it answered, some showing planchet blisters, others with reverse features that appeared oddly off-center or slightly rotated, and some even with missing or nearly invisible FG initials beneath the Lincoln memorial. An error historically linked to worn dies or over-polishing, yet impossible to reconcile with the rigorous die maintenance protocols in place by 2003, and when metallurgical tests began revealing microscopic inconsistencies in plating thickness and die pressure impact points, a more disturbing possibility began to take shape: that these anomalies weren't isolated errors but the result of a flawed die batch or unauthorized trial phase, perhaps triggered by a brief mechanical failure or procedural deviation that was either unnoticed or quietly corrected, leaving behind only the coins themselves as unintentional evidence. And as more and more examples were gathered, patterns began to emerge, suggesting that a subset of 2003 D Lincoln cents were struck under circumstances no one could fully explain, dies behaving inconsistently, hubs possibly misaligned at microscopic levels, and in some cases, the presence of clash marks that didn't match any known die pairings for that year, implying that undocumented or even experimental dies may have been used temporarily during a production gap or calibration phase. And when numismatists cross-reference die states, some discovered chilling similarities to reverse designs used in prior years, leading to wild theories about obsolete die reuse, rogue maintenance substitutions, or even deliberate obfuscation of mint activity during a period when official records are strangely incomplete or sanitized, as if the trail of what truly happened was deliberately erased. Yet the coins remained, their strange scars preserved in every blister, ghostly doubling, or mintmark that appeared to float just outside the design grid. And what made the mystery even more haunting was the fact that the 2003 D penny was produced during a time of heightened scrutiny and press optimization, when errors were supposed to be caught instantly, making these persistent anomalies not just surprising, but almost impossible. And as the coins continued to surface in small numbers, a new class of collectors emerged, those who dedicated their entire hunt to the 2003 D, scouring bank boxes, estate jars, and dealer inventories for those few specimens that bore the unmistakable signs of minting deviation. And the more they searched, the more chilling the discoveries became: coins with shifted relief layers, flattened lettering in precisely misaligned spots, rim denticles interrupted mid-sequence, and shadowy impressions beneath Lincoln's coat lapel that hinted at double hubbing or a brief restrike anomaly. And yet, despite the mounting evidence, The U.S. Mint never issued a clarification, leaving experts to wonder whether this was a mistake hidden in bureaucratic oversight or an intentional silence guarding procedures that were never meant for public knowledge. And among the most jaw-dropping revelations was a set of specimens found with partial die rotation, so minute that it escaped casual notice, yet perfectly replicable across certain die stages, proving that this was no one-off accident, but a pattern, a footprint of a process gone subtly and silently askew. And as collectors dug deeper, even more bizarre traits surfaced. 2003 descents showing abrupt design transitions where the memorial base faded prematurely, or where the shield-like reverse devices, intended for years to come, appeared as ghostly outlines, as if dies or hubs from the future had bled into that fateful year, sparking theories of experimental hybrid dies, improperly retired tooling, or clandestine preparation for future design changes being accidentally fed into production ahead of schedule, all of which pointed toward the idea that the 2003 Lincoln penny was a silent witness to events never officially recorded, a coin that somehow absorbed the shockwaves of mistakes or experiments that Mint leadership didn't want remembered. And so today, collectors who hold one of these strange coins aren't merely handling a cent, they're holding a historical cipher. A puzzle locked in metal, a riddle whose answer may lie in a missing production memo, a deleted calibration file, or a technician's forgotten notebook, and with each new coin found, the story grows deeper, more twisted, more enthralling, because while some anomalies can be explained away as post-mint damage or strike-throughs, the persistent structural patterns on the 2003 cannot be so easily dismissed, especially when they continue to appear in pristine, uncirculated rolls, suggesting that many more could be hiding in plain sight, waiting in circulation for the right eyes to see the telltale signs, the shifted D, the vanished designer initials, the warped shadows around Lincoln's bust, the die clash that overlays no known pairing, and this constant possibility, this electrifying uncertainty, is what drives the relentless hunt forward, coin after coin, box after box, year after year, because those who understand the weight of this mystery know that they're chasing something more than a mint error, they're chasing a crack in the official narrative, a tear in the veil of government precision, and the tantalizing belief that even in the most controlled environments, chaos still finds a way to speak through copper and zinc, through ghost impressions and misplaced marks, through design inconsistencies and unexplained die states, and perhaps, just perhaps, somewhere out there, the final piece exists, the perfect specimen that will tie all these threads together, reveal the truth of what happened in that Denver facility 2 decades ago, and complete the story of a penny that was never meant to be rare, never meant to be flawed, never meant to be legendary, but somehow, through accident or secrecy or fate, became all three. Last. Today we delve into the chilling, unsolved mystery of the 1998 Lincoln penny, a coin that, on the surface, appears no different from the billions that flooded circulation at the close of the 20th century, but beneath its worn copper shell lies a trail of inconsistencies, manufacturing oddities, and unexplainable features that have turned it into an obsession for numismatists across the globe, sparking the kind of question that can keep an entire community awake at night: what if a small, overlooked mistake made the 1998 penny one of the rarest and most mysterious coins ever produced by the U.S. Mint? It begins in Denver, 1998, a time of operational overdrive as the Mint ramped up production to meet the needs of a booming economy, implementing streamlined technologies, improved die life management, and upgraded quality control processes meant to eliminate the very errors that would later make this coin infamous. Yet in the midst of this relentless pace, anomalies began to surface, subtle at first, whispered about on message boards and coin shows, only to grow into a deafening mystery that challenged the very understanding of what should and shouldn't be possible in a highly regulated minting environment. As collectors started uncovering Lincoln cents with ghost-like impressions around the bust, shadowy doubling in the Liberty inscription, an obverse strike weakness inconsistent with properly calibrated equipment, and even more disturbingly, multiple examples were found where the D mintmark appeared either off-axis, microscopically shifted, or stamped with an appearance inconsistent with official Denver die markers, as if applied using an outdated hub or even a different generation of minting tool altogether. prompting questions not just about machine calibration but about whether rogue die sets or unrecorded replacements were ever used on the production floor, and if so, why there is no formal documentation of such a deviation, and that was only the beginning. Because what followed were discoveries that shook the numismatic community. 1998 Pennies. Exhibiting evidence of reverse die clashes that matched no known mint pairings, coins showing double dares on Lincoln's profile more commonly associated with the Philadelphia Mint's double die errors of earlier years, leading some experts to theorize that a batch of dies may have been improperly transferred between mints or that an experimental die, intended for internal testing or calibration, had accidentally found its way into full circulation runs without proper clearance or oversight, a theory further compounded by coins discovered with misaligned planchets, uneven rim thickness, and surface textures that suggested rapid heating and cooling cycles inconsistent with typical mint procedures. And as numismatic sleuths began comparing photographic evidence, cataloging micro-anomalies, and mapping die progression charts, one truth became unshakably clear. There was something different about these 1998 Lincoln cents, something that transcended coincidence or minor variance. Something systematic, deliberate, or deeply accidental that managed to bypass multiple layers of modern quality control and leave behind a string of riddles etched in every misaligned detail. And from that realization grew a movement, a coalition of coin hunters and anomaly chasers who committed themselves to solving the riddle, sharing case studies of coins with partial ghost impressions on the reverse, anomalous thickness and copper coating, and most terrifyingly, pennies with no visible FG initials near the memorial at all, a telltale sign of severe die abrasion or an improperly finished hubbing process, a flaw so rare and so specific that it should have been caught immediately if not for the possibility that certain errors were actively concealed or lost in the bureaucratic machinery of a mint system too large to police itself entirely. And still, the anomalies kept emerging, with collectors reporting subtle tilts in the date, rim cuts forming unusually on the upper left quadrant, reverse die cracks slicing across the memorial base in unnatural trajectories, and even signs of improper striking pressure that distorted the metal flow just enough to warp the coin's geometry at angles so precise that only digital overlay scans could reveal the true scope of the deviation, fueling conspiracy-level theories about undocumented die trials, temporary experimental presses, or even emergency retooling operations that were never disclosed, perhaps triggered by a catastrophic die failure during a night shift and quickly patched over with whatever tools were available, regardless of their origin, a scenario that would explain the scattered appearance of these strange coins and the absence of any formal records to account for them. And as years passed, what began as a scattered curiosity grew into a legend, with stories surfacing of collectors who stumbled upon misfit 1998 pennies in their change and spent months trying to authenticate features that didn't match any official mint data, only to be met with ambiguous feedback from grading institutions and dead ends in government correspondence, as though the story of these coins was being quietly buried in bureaucratic gray zones, leaving only the coins themselves, and those who dared to study them, as keepers of a truth too complicated or inconvenient to formally acknowledge. And the deeper the investigation went, the more disturbing the findings became. Rumors of batches shipped to the wrong inspection hubs, of broken machinery swapped in from Philadelphia for short-term use during a maintenance cycle, of employee testimony, anonymous, unverifiable, suggesting that in 1998 there were indeed days when protocol was suspended, dies were rushed, records incomplete, and perhaps even a moment when a forgotten or improperly catalogued die was pressed into service for no other reason than necessity. A moment that changed everything without anyone realizing it, until those coins began reappearing like ghosts in the hands of curious collectors decades later. And now, as the hunt continues and more examples are studied under digital microscopes, layered imaging, and X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy, a chilling possibility lingers in the minds of those who understand the implications best, that somewhere among the ordinary billions lies a rare lineage of 1998 pennies unlike any others, products of an event that will never appear in official archives, whose patterns are hidden beneath copper plating, and whose answers lie only in careful observation, obsessive cataloging, and a willingness to believe that even in an age of advanced minting precision, mistakes, True, unexplainable, deeply buried mistakes can still be made, can still slip into circulation, can still echo across decades as whispers of a forgotten truth etched permanently into metal, and with every new discovery, every fresh anomaly found in a roll or drawer or dusty coin jar, we come closer to piecing together the full scope of what really happened in Denver during those strange, undocumented days of 1998. And until that mystery is finally unraveled, one thing remains certain. The 1998 D. Lincoln penny is not just a coin, it is a cipher, a relic of hidden errors and suppressed truths, and a call to every collector with eyes sharp enough to see what others miss, that the greatest secrets are sometimes hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right hands to bring them into the light.